Do you wish that you had a time travel machine, right? An ability like Back to the Future and so many other movies where you could travel back in time and maybe alter the past a little bit? I'm not talking about, pick up a winning lotto ticket or know the best, sports to bet on or pick up the best stocks. I'm talking about something that you would want to change in your life or re experience because it was so extraordinary. Today, we're talking about the past because oftentimes I'm finding that people are very encumbered by their past. I was too. And I've spent a lot of time dealing with my past and engaging and interacting with it. And so I've come up with four different areas to focus on with your past to live the most exceptional life today. I hope you stick around with me. And if you haven't already hit that subscribe button while the intro music plays, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode. Hey guys, welcome back to a Monday Mindset episode. I'm so grateful that you are joining me once again. You are such a precious audience, and I've received phone calls and texts and messages from different people in the audience. And I just want you to know, you listeners are my absolute favorites. You know that whoever I'm interviewing on Thursdays, that they're like my favorite person. And every episode is my favorite episode because everyone is so exceptional and so important. And I just want you to know that when you reach out to me, it just makes my heart oh my gosh, I just go to the moon and circle it a few times because it's such an honor and privilege to get to know you a little bit better and what's helping you and serving you well, and it's been fun to be able to come alongside so many of you and cheer you on and to help you overcome just some different hurdles or tweak things. So if you are listening right now and you are one of my listeners, just please remember, I'm here for you and you are welcome to reach out to me. You just message, ask me how I know podcast at gmail.com, and I will absolutely respond to you. You can also reach me on social media platforms. I've recently jumped over to Instagram. The handle is Happy Julie Holly. And if you're interested, I'm posting some Instagram only content that is like basically the daily nudge that might help ignite some motivation and excitement for your day. So all of that aside, all of that is intended to just serve you and to help you become the next best version of yourself. Speaking of that, how's your past? Oh my goodness. I'm officially in my 40s, like hardcore in my 40s, and I absolutely love the 40s so much. But one of the things that I love about the 40s is all of the things that I learned in my 20s and in my 30s. And now that I'm into my 40s, it's like I learned some things in my early 40s that make me better equipped to, exit my 40s. And that makes me really excited. But it's not that way for everyone. And I have done a lot of work personally that has really helped me out. And I'm hoping that these four little areas will help you reflect on your life, on how you view the past, so that you can live the most exceptional present and future years to come. Are you ready? The first area, and I don't know if I want to go on a scale of 1 to 4 or 4 to 1, because I think every one of these is equally important, and especially depending on who you are and your experiences and how you've engaged or maybe disengaged those experiences. Um, so number one gets to be whichever one serves you best is going to be number one. Okay, we'll just make this, you get to decide. But for the sake of making this easier, the first area I want to look at is control versus opportunity. I'm not going to lie. My past and my expectations on what I wanted in life very much controlled me for years. Some of you who've been following the podcast know that I was married before, and it was a really horrific experience. And it was a very alarming way to enter adulthood. It left me in a position where I became suicidal, and I didn't have I made a very clear and distinct choice that I am going to choose to live, that I believe God has a path and plan for me, and that's more important. But it was a very tumultuous time. For years to come after that, I let the past control me. So I experienced something really that was abusive and horrible, especially not coming from ever experiencing anything like that, to leaving it. And yet that still had control over me. One of the reasons that still had control over me was because I let the spectators in my life, which were basically in my head, and let's just be real, most of the spectators in our life are right here in our head. And I let all these outside expectations judge me continually for the decision I'd made. In within my belief system, divorce isn't something that is people don't cheer you on when you get divorced. So we'll put it that way, right? It's, one husband, one wife for all of life. And so departing from that and forging my own path left this, I felt like I had a scarlet letter on me, and I felt that I was now disqualified, and I disqualified myself from so many opportunities in life because of how I engaged my past. I looked at my past and I saw shame and regret, and I allowed all of those things to invade my present. And instead of enjoying the freedom and the opportunity that I had been given and what I call a second chance life, instead of fully enjoying that, I allowed these things to taint it. Let's take this to you now. Is there an experience in your life that you need to reconcile, that you need to simply let go of so that it no longer controls you? That experience might circle around a specific relationship. It might circle around your work and how you've gone about jockeying your way up the ranks. It might include selfishness and how you have prioritized yourself over others, and you've noticed that. Whatever it is, are you ready to let the control go? Are you ready to let that no longer be your identity about who you are? Because that's not who you are, but let it go so that you can be who you are. Sometimes we have this filter over us, and I've spoken on this a little bit in the past, but sometimes that control is like a dirty lens. Like if we had a window in front of us and it was totally dirty, then we can't see out clearly. And sometimes we know within us, like, oh, well, I'm wearing clean clothes. I look great. I'm not dirty. But we see ourselves through that window, and we see ourselves as dirty or tainted or scarred, or insert whatever word, adjective would is how you perceive yourself. It's time to change that. You don't need to look at yourself in that way. If you have something in your past that's weighing you down and controlling your present, let it go. It's not serving you well. And you might even say, you are not serving me well, and you are not part of who I am. You're an imposter. Talk about imposter syndrome, right? You are the imposter. Get out of my life. Give it a hearty heave ho and kick it out of your life. I'm not going to lie. You will probably have to do this initially multiple times throughout the day. And then after that, it might become less and less and less and less. In regards to, my past and that terrible time in my early 20s, in my previous marriage and suicidal and all of that experience, it's no longer something that has any power or control over me. When it enters into my life, I can engage it, and it actually serves me well now, and that's powerful. But it took me a long time to get here. I'm not saying it's going to take you a long time to disengage from something that has control over you. I'm just saying be prepared. You might have to give it the heave ho multiple times throughout a day, and then it might just, taper off over time. But be patient with yourself and be kind to yourself and enjoy releasing that control in your life and the opportunities that it brings your way. The next part that often encumbers lives, and I can definitely give like, yep, this is me, is that we have fear versus our freedom to accept and embrace that failure will never drown us. Okay. And so I want you to think about what you are afraid of. Going back to Julie in her early 20s, since I've used that example already with that horrible marriage situation that I was in, I would just encourage you. I was terrified. I allowed fear to just swallow my entire being. I was afraid of my safety. I was afraid of who I was with. I was afraid. My entire world became a very, very scary place. And I even became very scary to myself. In all reality, there's plenty that we can be afraid of in this world. We could be afraid of a really dysfunctional, abusive relationship. We could be afraid of an overbearing boss. We could be afraid and fearful of all the gossip and chatter that, and the negativity that people can have behind our backs. We can be afraid of going to that family reunion and showing our face there, even though we haven't been there in like 10 years, right? There are so many things that we can choose to be afraid of. Or we can flip fear on its side, give it the old heave ho. We might be afraid that we are going to make some of those same choices again. The fear of, will I be able to break this pattern in my life? I'm going to admit something, and I've admitted this on another episode before, and I've come up with a term for it. I would say that there was a point in my life where I was a very cheerful thorn. Yeah, that sounds horrible, right? And I'm going to do an entire mindset episode on smiles and how deceiving they can be because I've been really digging into that. But I remember, I am a joyful, happy person, so don't get me wrong on that. Like that is completely authentic. But there was a time in my life where it's like I would just smile and expect you to suck it up and keep going. Like, I remember hiking with a friend who was not a hiker, and we're trying to rendezvous with some other friends at a summit. And this friend who's not an outdoor enthusiast is like, oh, Julie, can we just slow down for a minute, for a little bit? And I said, yeah, how about I slow down and you speed up? Sounds like a win. Okay. That's what I would call a cheerful thorn. When I look back on that, there's so much shame and embarrassment because I cannot believe I was so inconsiderate and unkind. Like, I didn't see this person's deeper need and that they were physically having trouble. I was so focused. And that was something I had to learn to grow through, is that some of us can be so focused on the outcome or so afraid of missing that outcome that we hurt the people around us. That wasn't the only time that I squished somebody's feelings or hurt them. And that cheerful thorn is not a safe place to be. When I look back on that, I can sometimes be afraid. I don't want that person to come out. I don't want that person to ever show up again in my life. And I have felt that way for, golly, at least 15 years. All that to say is that we can allow that fear to own us and go back to that control. Fear and control are very much best friends. I could allow that fear to control me, or I could say, wow, I really screwed up and I really didn't treat some people in my life very well. And that brings a lot of bad feelings. I never want to feel that way again. However, I know that I don't have to make that same choice. And I know that I can be successful. You see, a lot of times when I am speaking with people, I notice that it's something from their past that is holding them down from reaching into their future. They're identifying with a version of themselves that is antiquated. That cheerful thorn, Julie, she is antiquated. She is from my 20s. She has grown up. Sometimes she might show up, but she is not allowed on the scene. And I don't invite her into my life, right? But sometimes people continue to dip back into their past and identify, well, I was married to this person and I had these horrible experiences, and so that's who I am for all of time. Guess what, Buttercup? That's not who you are for all of time. Okay, you get to decide. And the moment, just like when you're parachuting, which is super fun, if you haven't done it, go do it. If you're parachuting and you pop that ripcord and your parachute opens up, it's like poof, and you just start floating, and it's amazing. But if you want to stop that free fall towards, like annihilation, because that's where that's going to get you, identifying and holding on to that past version of yourself, that is just going to suck you down and take you out. Pop the cord, release yourself from that past version of yourself, and give yourself permission to step into the new version of yourself. Guess what? You're going to make mistakes. You don't know. Like, you're always transitioning into something new. And yet we have this expectation that we should be able to do it so graciously and so eloquently because everyone else does. Guess what? Spoiler, everyone else doesn't. It's just that we see the best in others. Now it's time for you to start seeing the best in you, because you are extraordinary. Whoever you were in your past, that is in your past, and you have given it the old heave ho, and now it's time to embrace who you are and this current version of yourself that is growing into the next version. Okay, so we were going to dismiss fear, and we're going to accept that, you know what, I'm going to stumble and I'm going to make some mistakes, but guess what? That's okay. I can make a mistake and I might even really drop the ball in something, but I'm still going to come out whole. And that's going to be way better than trying to pretend to be this person in the past. Okay, so we have to dive into that for a second, even though I want to dive into a whole mindset episode on this. But right now, if you are still identifying with a past version of yourself, you are an imposter. Everyone's talking about imposter syndrome. And yet, the biggest scam of it all is that when we are choosing to identify with that past version of ourselves, who we are no longer, we are clearly an imposter. We are acting and pretending. And the pretending needs to stop. Stop fooling yourself. Free yourself. Stop trying to be this old version of yourself, because think about snakes or anything that has an exoskeleton, mostly reptiles and insects, right? Think about these critters that have to shed their exoskeleton. Well, guess who else needs to shed the past and shed it is an exoskeleton, and it comes off and it might flake off. It might come off whole in one piece. It might take time. You might have to rub against a rock and like loosen it up or something. But my point, I hope you are hearing, is that that is going to restrict you from growing into the next best version of yourself. The longer you hold on to that old identity, which isn't even you, which is a total lie to the world and robbing you, the longer you hold on to that, the more you are constricting your growth. You are extraordinary. You have this amazingness that just needs to be released to the world, and you need to shed that exoskeleton as fast as you can so that you can evolve and grow into this next most amazing version of yourself. Guess what? This is one of those things that rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. My grandma told me when she was 91, she said that she still relates and sees the world as her 26-year-old self. She's like, I know I'm not, but I still see things through that lens. The biggest part of what I took away is what she said next, because she saw in me this desire to arrive. Like, oh, Julie, you're never going to arrive. You are going to constantly be learning and growing throughout your entire life. Those words that she gave me were the most freeing and liberating words that I had received from her, I think, ever. So receive those words. Like, this isn't oh, you're going to arrive and this is who you're going to be. This is who you were 15, 20, 30 years ago, is not who you are now. Release that exoskeleton, be who you are now, but also have the awareness to know that who you are right now, that person's not going to stick around either. And that person shouldn't stick around because the world needs you to become the next version of you. So rinse and repeat, get that exoskeleton off so that you are always moving on up. So I really got ahead of myself on that fear versus freedom, because the next area to check in on is going to be regret versus acceptance. And that really falls in line with so much of what I just explained about accepting who you were in the past, but not allowing that past version of yourself to have that control or that power in your life today. So I'm not going to go into that too much because it is so in line with everything I just said. And I love that these elements, they're just very subtle iterations of each other. Okay. And so you might feel like, oh, that's part of me and that's part of me, but it might just be little slivers that you need to do that check in with. I suppose I'll just encapsulate that part with who you were is not who you are today or who you will be tomorrow. So enjoy today. Be you today. Be authentically you. Don't be imposter you from the past, some weird identity that is not you, but be you. The final area to check in with, because those previous areas are often centered on triggers or pain points or different rough spots in our life and our experiences, but this next spot has to do with our successes. When's the last time you reflected on your successes? This is, I don't know why, but this is such a challenging area for so many people. So often people feel that it's egotistical or that they're very prideful if they are celebrating their successes, but it's not. Celebrating your accomplishments is really important in solidifying who you are and who you are growing into. Now, yes, I suppose it could be egotistical if you just want all the praise and glory for yourself and you just park and that's all you center on. But I know you. You're not like that. You are a fantastic group of listeners who are looking ahead into the next best version of yourself. So embrace those accomplishments along the way. It's really important to remember them. You see, we end up having this weird amnesia brain thing that happens where we look at the traumas that we have faced in our past and we kind of look at them through rose colored lenses, and yet we look at our successes, and oftentimes people look at their successes and deflate them instead of accepting them for what they were. Oh yeah, I mean, seriously, how many times have you heard people say like, oh yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal? Yeah, you got the Pulitzer Prize. Pretty big deal, right? I mean, think about it. So often people are so good people are so afraid of becoming perceived as these prideful, snotty, arrogant people that they just really downplay their successes. And guess what? You need to celebrate those successes as much as you are looking at your failures, your shortcomings, and the other pain points in your life, you need to be receiving your successes as well, because success leaves clues. Success will tell you what is working really well in your life. So embrace the successes and say, wow, cool, that is working so well. And those successes are a reminder of, one, I have been successful in the past. I have done tremendous things in the past. I am capable of doing these things. This is extraordinary. If I could accomplish that, then what more can I accomplish now that I am the next best version of myself with a success like that in my past? What more am I capable of? So, as we look at our successes, as we remind ourselves of those, they bolster us up into launching into our future in a really powerful way. I have no doubt that you want to do tremendous good in the world. And accomplishing that is not beating yourself up, holding on to the past, and being an imposter because you're trying to pretend to be someone else. Accomplishing being that amazing person in the world is, yeah, I see those things and now I'm this person. And wow, even though those things happened, look at these amazing things I was still able to do. If I was able to do these things while I was that person, I know I am going to do so much more. Give yourself some credit. Okay. Now, I will give you a challenge. If I lift my green screen up, you would see that I have a vision board, but I've also segmented it, and I've mentioned this before, into an accomplishment board. And for me, that's been a huge deal. It was hard to put things on that board because, like many of you, it's like, is that really an accomplishment? I mean, did I really do that? And we can do this weird self doubt thing again, to be so redundant. I don't understand why we do that with our successes when we gladly, readily, happily embrace all of our mistakes and failures. So embrace and remember the successes and allow those to pave the way into your future successes. I hope this episode served you well. I'm not sure what your number one point would be out of all of these, but I would love to know about it. Shoot me an email at askmehowiknowpodcast@gmail.com, and I'd love to hear from you, and I will very happily respond to you. If you haven't already shared this episode or another episode with someone you care about, I would be honored if you took time to do that. I'd also be honored if you took time to rate this 5 stars. Yeah, unfortunately, the reality of the world is the more ratings and reviews that you have, the better performance and the bigger and greater the reach your podcast is going to have. Well, I want this material. I think this is going to help so many people, and I would be honored if you would help me help others by doing any of those actions of sharing, rating, reviewing, however you like to do it. I appreciate you so much, and I am so excited about the journey that you are on and where it is going to lead, because it's you and your journey are going tremendous places. Believe it, receive it, and live it. Until next time, go find your freedom. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Ask Me How I Know. This episode was brought to you by 3 Keys Investments. They are dedicated to helping people like you, you, my awesome listeners, develop passive income and legacy wealth through multifamily investing. Feel free to check out their website, 3keysinvestments.com, to see if there is an offering that will help your portfolio grow and meet all of your needs. If you haven't already rated, reviewed, subscribed, liked, all of those bells and whistles, I would be absolutely honored if you would do that for Ask Me How I Know. Thanks again, and go make it a great day.